Welcome everybody, my name is Michael. Today we're discussing some interesting crypto news. We'll start with the fact that Bitcoin's at 65,000 and has raised $6,000-$7,000 recently. There's been a very nice pump to that. Mt. Gox payments have started arriving early for some members who have opted to receive in their exchange accounts. So for example, somebody using Kraken just received their Mt. Gox payment. Not everybody, but they've started rolling out and people are very excited. And some are holding on, so there's not as much selling pressure as expected. We are past the correction now, and today we're talking about a special individual. Actually, there's been a lot of individuals. We're talking about crypto ATMs, and specifically fraud. There's been a lot of fraud in cryptocurrency, or at least it's been highly publicized. And the problem is, back then, it was pretty anonymous and tough to trace. Now, as the years pass, it's very easy to trace Bitcoin. There's a huge paper trail. But there's other altcoins that are a little bit tougher. Now, if you're in America, there's a lot of regulation, especially with crypto ATMs. It's not like you just get to purchase a crypto ATM, especially a used one, and say, okay, yeah, let me buy some cryptocurrency, whether from Coinbase or another exchange, or you just have a bunch of crypto lying around, and you place it on a random street corner, and you're good to go. People will need their identification. They will need their verification of identity, the KYC, AML, anti-money laundering. This is important because if you are improperly selling cryptocurrency, you could be allegedly participating in a criminal enterprise, or at least facilitating crime by letting thieves, thugs, scammers, fraudsters, general criminals, stuff that I won't mention on this channel, you're going to be helping them avoid detection. And the government certainly doesn't want that. Now, for that, you're also going to be able to charge higher rates. You could be charging 10, 20, 25, maybe even 50%, because someone who's a criminal who just stole a bunch of money and wants to launder it doesn't care if they lose a fair portion of it, because it's better to have something than lose everything and increased likelihood of you go to jail. Now for that, there's been a fair amount of these popping around in New York City, of all places. New York City and New York is a very bad state to do this in, because not only in America is there more regulation, there's increased scrutiny in the state of New York. There has been since a decade now. And the first companies that started in New York for cryptocurrency actually moved out a very long time ago. Some of the most important figures in cryptocurrency, if they were established in New York at that time, and there's a couple that spring to mind, they had criminal cases. Some were thrown out, but you might recognize them. And New York's just not a state you want to do this in. So there was an interesting article, and then that led me to the ManhattanDA.org website. The district attorney, Mr. Bragg, Alvin L. Bragg Jr., announced the trial conviction of Robert Taylor, 37 years old, for operating in illegal Bitcoin ATM businesses. He marketed this towards individuals engaged in criminal activities. Mainly, he would pop them up in laundromats. And they were in New York initially, but then you would have some out of the state as well. In Florida, of all places as well, of course, Florida. You would also have them right next to New York and New Jersey. So the three best places to find criminals, right? Or so the law is saying. But obviously there's a fair amount of crime in big cities. Between 2017 and 2018, this goes back, way back to the good days, back to the Wild West days. Of course, Taylor converted more than $5.6 million. Not a huge amount. When you really think about it, he was anywhere from 10 to 20% fees. He didn't make that much money. Supposedly they're saying he made over $1 million, and maybe he was charging more than that. But it's still not a lot of money compared to the other criminals who stole like $100 million in crypto. It's nothing crazy. And this is where it gets bad. Because he was operating in New York, because he was operating in the US, he didn't get a lot of money. It's highly regulated, and he's going to be facing some serious penalties now. There's other countries you could have done this in, and there's definitely a lot of these operations happening in Europe, in South America, in Asia, in Africa. You're not going to have such harsh penalties. You're going to be able to pay off cops through corruption or judges in some of these countries. You're going to have a lot more money because there's probably more criminal entities and organizations using it there, and you're going to be able to run with it way longer and have many more. These are unlicensed, these are unregistered, they're not plastered on Coin ATM Radar. That's what I always said, that hey, if we go to like Coin ATM Radar right now, it says there's 38,907 ATMs. That's what's registered. Obviously there's well more than 39,000. Or it could be 40,000, who knows the actual amount. This individual was running 46 ATMs that were not on Coin ATM radar. And that's just one guy. There's confirmed other cases as well. You have a bunch of these guys, and eventually you get to 1,000 ATMs that are not registered. Also, you do have ATMs that have just been built, just been created, new companies, and they're still not registered on there yet. So there's always this new cycle. And you might have previous companies that are going bankrupt and sold out or whatever. But anyways, in this case, Mr. Taylor operated these little Bitcoin, in terms of this guy, the con man, yes, Bitcoin kiosks in at least 46 locations in New York City, and a couple more locations in New Jersey and Miami. And out of that $5.6 billion, they said when they arrested him, he had over $250,000 in cash at the time. So from his apartment, they found $250,000 in cash. There was 20 Bitcoin ATMs containing $44,000 in cash as well. There was forensic analysis done that indicated more than $5.6 billion went through all the kiosks, and there was approximately $1 billion that they determined in fees. Approximately of $225,000 of that was deposited into Mr. Taylor's personal bank accounts. And despite this is where it gets a little funky. Mr. Taylor committed some other crimes. Of course, once you're criminal, always criminal. You had probably the dumbest decision. After operating this, I get it, it's a little tough to find out, hey, you're running an unlicensed ATM business. He lied on his taxes. And that's really, really something that you shouldn't do. Because if you remember, there's a famous man from Chicago, Mr. Al Capone, who they couldn't get for a lot of really heinous crimes, but they did get him on tax fraud. Because the IRS, the tax man, they want their money. You can't run from the government with tax crimes. They will find you eventually, especially for cryptocurrency, where they realize people are probably not going to pay their taxes. So, what happened? Mr. Taylor only reported that he made $3,000 on his 2017 tax return. Wow. If you're going to fake it, at least try and make it seem legit. You only made $3,000, really? And in 2018, they said he reported a loss of $140,000, which means now you're able to claim, hey, for the next year's coming, $3,500 worth of, or either $3,000 or $3,500 worth of credits going forward. So if you do make over $3,000, like he said in 2017, you won't have to pay taxes on the first $3,000 or $3,500. I forgot which was. That is the only benefit that I'm using right now, because in 2017, in 2018, ironically, I lost everything. And I lost also approximately, I lost more than what he actually reported, except I did lose it. And I wish I had just a stack of cash somewhere here. Please, if I find it, I'll be happy. But I've been looking for years, and that hasn't happened. Not even a penny. So, yeah, unfortunately, there's people like this guy who are certainly getting away with crimes and making it a little bit worse for those of us who are trying to do things the legitimate way. Because it's very, very difficult, even if I had money, to be able to run a operational and fully licensed ATM business in the United States. You need at least a couple $100,000. You need lawyers. You need some solid contracts, and it's very, very difficult. You need a lot of money, because it's not just the money that's in the ATM. You need backup money. You need backup Bitcoin. Just because for a licensed cash transmitter, you need to be able to, they treat you like a bank, essentially. You need to have money, and that's it. They don't care. You don't have money, you're going to lose your licenses. You're going to lose your whole business. The government does not mess around with this stuff. So, this was among other false representations, which he did on his tax return. So there are, multiple charges for that. During the course of the investigation in his apartment, they also found this was good, a sketch of two young men installing a Bitcoin kiosk in a laundromat, and this sketch was hung in his apartment. Well, that just says, wow, I did it right there and there. He was also living in a Manhattan penthouse, which, that's interesting. He probably was doing illegal things for other money as well, because a Manhattan penthouse, even one of the smaller buildings, if you only made $1 million, I don't know, seems a little sketchy there. Probably making money from other things as well. If you already forged his tax copies and was making money through money laundering, I'm pretty sure there was other things he was doing as well. So, why did he get charged? Well, first off, he did not have a money transmission license from the New York State Department of Financial Services, also commonly called a BIT license. Under DFS regulations, any individual operating a I don't know why I can't say it, Bitcoin kiosk business must have a license to engage in virtual currency business activity. He did not have that, obviously. So, what was it like? How was he making the money? Well, he had an interesting idea. The ATMs did not have any logos. The ATMs did not have any identifying information except for a little Snapchat icon. And this Snapchat icon was linked to an anonymous Snapchat account that only contained information regarding a prepaid burner phone and a Proton Mail account. This is a Proton Mail, by the way, an excellent mail service. It's great for, anonymity and whatnot, encrypted email service. But that seems a little sketchy, right? The Snapchat account told customers not to disclose the location of the kiosks for obvious reasons, telling one customer not to tell other Bitcoin companies about our machines. We need to stay hidden. That's pretty funny there. Taylor's customers were willing to pay the fee because he was advertising there's no photo taking, there's no cameras to see who you are. We don't need to see your identification. And by the way, back in Poland, I don't know how it is now, it's probably the same. I never verified my identification to buy or sell cryptocurrency back then because why would you? Who cares? They only needed that for larger transactions. So here you have to verify even for $50. I mean, come on, really? So, but anyways, he was advertised on his Snapchat. We never ask for ID or have a camera that takes a picture of your face. In the laundromats, he would discourage members from using other Bitcoin companies by saying, unless you like having your identification and your picture taken, which obviously certain individuals wouldn't want that, you can come to us. And then somebody complained, well, why is it 10 to 20% fees? And he responded on the Snapchat account, bro, we got to maintain everyone's privacy. It's worth the money, which is true. I mean, 10 to 20% is not that bad. I've seen a lot worse. 10 to 20%, sometimes you might see unlicensed, unlegal ATMs that require KYC and ATM and AML procedures. So there was an interesting individual, a customer, who shared in an advertising video that he only buys his Bitcoin in the laundromats. These racks only go into the machine with no ID and no camera. You can imagine what that man's profession probably is. Law authority individuals noticed during one of the sting operations that the first customer they saw using this actually emerged from a stolen U-Haul vehicle. So they obviously gathered enough evidence that, hey, you're getting a lot of very interesting dealers. I wonder what. Criminals, thieves, scammers. And now there's a bunch of these scams online where, the old grandma and grandpa comes into the gas station and they're like, ooh, depositing 15 grand into the Bitcoin ATM because they hacked their computer. Well, obviously. But grandma and grandpa didn't grow up with these technological innovations back then, so you kind of feel bad for them. But at a certain point, it's like enough people tell you, hey, watch out, be careful. There's only so much that can happen. I worked at a bank, and during that time, the short time frame that I was at that bank, we had a lot of these individuals who you would have these brazen scams, every single red flag would go off. And these individuals who are 80, 90 years old were like, no, I have to send 50 grand to the middle of Dubai. Okay. Yeah, well, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, you probably shouldn't do that. I know I can't legally stop you from sending this money, but these are the recommendations. This has all the hallmarks of a scam. You're not going to see this money back. There's no chargebacks. Even with a bank wire or cryptocurrency, for sure, there's no chargebacks. Now, the money can be traced, but usually those organizations, they're not in the U.S. That's when the money leaves the country. And that's when, even if they do get busted abroad, corruption comes into play. And that's that. Anyways, just wanted to thank you for watching today's video. Very exciting days ahead for us in the crypto world here. And we'll see you guys in the next one.